All right, let's read a case study from this book that talks about a man named Jerry. And let's see if you think, you guys watching this, do you think that this was his thoughts and his actions and everything that that we're talking about? Or do you think it was something else? Let's get into it. This is a really good story time. Let me turn on my light. One of the great things about this book is it talks about how you can't receive information unless you're on a frequency to basically be able to receive it. So I'm going to read this little story time because I know there are so many of you out there that have had these experiences where your mindset changes your entire life. Jerry returns from the brink of death. On August 14th, 2015, Jerry was putting a project together on his back deck. As he was reading the directions, he felt a sudden sharp pain right below his sternum. He thought perhaps it was gas, so he took some medication, but it didn't go away. Instead, he laid down to rest, and it got worse. By the time he tried to get up, he started losing his ability to stand and thought he might pass out. As the pain became more intense and his breathing grew shorter, he called an ambulance. With all his might, he dragged himself about 15 feet outside to the driveway so the paramedics wouldn't have to kick in his door. Kneeling on the driveway, he collapsed, waiting for the emergency medical technicians. When they arrived, they assumed he was having a heart attack and immediately began to follow that protocol. "You guys don't understand. I'm having a really hard time breathing," he told them. "We have to get you to the hospital right now. We have to get to the hospital right now." Jerry knew what he was talking about. He'd worked for 34 years as a medical technician in the very emergency room that they were about to take him. Jerry knew everyone in the ER, and once he arrived, doctors, nurses, technicians, and specialists began frantically running lab work on him. When a doctor who was also Jerry's friend told Jerry that red flags had come up in every test administered, Jerry knew things were not looking good. One test in particular was particularly alarming. His levels of this, and this enzymes produced by the pancreas were 4,000 to 5,000 units per liter, way above the norm of about 100 to 200. They put Jerry in the ICU. The pain soon worsened, and none of the drugs they were giving me worked, Jerry said. They told me that the duct to my gallbladder had been blocked and it was causing trouble in my pancreas. Worst of all, fluid started to develop in my lungs. I was now down by 80% breathing capacity in both lungs. That's when the doctors put me on a ventilator, and I knew things were bad. The doctor then asked his team to turn on the TV to Boston, allowing the doctor to have an immediate teleconference with other doctors in a larger hospital in the nearest big city. In all the times I worked at the hospital, I'd only seen the TV to Boston come on a few times for the most serious traumas or for people who were dying, Jerry said. It means that they have no idea what is happening. When the doctor you have trusted for years tells you they don't know what's going on, well, that's when my stress hormones started to kick into high gear. While all of this was happening, the medical staff told Jerry's wife that if there was any end-of-life paperwork, she needed to get it in order. Now would be the time to go home and get it. She left sobbing. Jerry soon realized he needed to start taking care of himself. He knew that if he allowed the stress hormones to start taking over, he was not going to win. I went from being a guy who hadn't been sick in years, who did yoga all the time and ate well, to all of a sudden being in the ICU. I kept telling myself, I can't go down this road. I can't give in to the fear. So I didn't. Since he'd recently read my book, You Are the Placebo, he started thinking, I gotta change these thought patterns. I can't allow these thoughts to make more cortisol to get into the body and start doing damage to what's left of me. The doctors eventually found out that Jerry had a large mass blocking a duct in his pancreas. The mass was not letting the mucus drain, so everything in the gland was backing up and spilling over into his bloodstream. My doctors stayed with me for 3 days straight, he says. They put an oxygen mask on me because I couldn't breathe. I had IVs on both sides, and meanwhile I kept thinking, watch your thoughts, relax, put something in the quantum field that's going to help you and not hurt you because you're already knocking on the door. I'll be okay. This too shall pass. I'm going to be all right. Whenever he was conscious, Jerry placed his energy on overcoming himself, changing his state of being, and creating a different outcome, constantly tuning into a different potential in the unified field. Fortunately, he had a private room, giving him plenty of opportunity to do his meditations whenever he wanted to. Jerry spent a week in the ICU, and at the end of the time, when he moved to a progressive care unit, the oxygen mask was gone and Jerry was walking around. Even so, he could not eat or drink anything for 9 weeks. If he had eaten anything or even had water, his pancreas would release acid into his body, eventually killing him. The only nourishment he received was through an IV. When Jerry was admitted to the hospital, he weighed 145 pounds. When he was discharged, he weighed 119. When he finally went home, still with an IV pole, he continued to do the work. As October drew near, the mass was still present. His doctor suggested he see a specialist in Boston to undergo surgery. Because Jerry was a medical professional, 2 days before the surgery, he suggested his medical team take some more tests and scans so the doctors would have the most up-to-date information. I know all the X-ray technicians, and yet they told me I no longer had a mass, and I didn't believe them. I called in the radiologist and the doctors. They kept saying, Jerry, we're looking at your film right now. We're telling you there's nothing. I'm calling the guys in Boston to tell them there will be no surgery. Later, Jerry realized that by constantly raising his energy, moving into a feeling of health, and changing the thoughts and beliefs that he was sick to the thoughts and belief that he was going to be fine, the higher frequency caused him to heal. I wasn't going to allow myself to think, woe is me, this is going to be bad. I kept working on this every day for as much of the day as I could. I put the right message, intention, and energy out into the quantum field to heal myself. And eventually, I did. Now, I don't think that Jerry made up that whole story. That would be insane. That would be a lot. You can call it God. You can call it the unified field. But whatever it is, your thoughts and the thoughts that you make verbal that hold an intention, let's just call those prayers, matter. Thanks, guys.